Leo, after 19 years, we're restructuring your department. My manager stated bluntly, please clear your workstation by 5 p.m. My name is Leo Vance, 56 years old, and until that Tuesday afternoon, I was the lead infrastructure architect at Synergy Dynamics in Austin, Texas. For nearly 2 decades, I'd been the cornerstone of their tech operations. From the early server clusters to the global network rollout, 4 different VPs had cycled through while I remained, having onboarded every new recruit, restored every corrupted database, and worked countless overnight shifts without ever demanding a title change or recognition. So when my boss, Marcus, summoned me to a meeting with Helena from HR already present, I knew before he spoke. The atmosphere had shifted months prior. I see, I said, giving a single nod. I walked out without another word. No outrage, no negotiation. Just silent acceptance. Back at my desk, I noticed younger staff members glance my way, then quickly refocus on their monitors. Gossip spreads fast. Most of them were developers I had trained myself, bright but unaware of the legacy frameworks and proprietary code I'd written. None of them could debug the custom monitoring tools I'd built or locate the master encryption keys hidden within our core systems. I began packing my belongings calmly. A framed picture of my family, a chipped ceramic mug my daughter made in art class, the hardy succulent that had thrived for 19 years under LEDs. Clara from sales approached, her expression concerned. Leo, I just heard. This is insane. You're the reason this place runs. I shrugged. Businesses evolve. But with no notice, after all your contributions? Her voice grew louder, attracting stares. It's all right, I said softly. It wasn't all right, but I wouldn't perform for them. As I left, Marcus emerged from his office to observe my departure. No farewell, no thanks. Just supervision to ensure I exited the building. What they never realized over the years was that I had become the most indispensable person in the entire company. Not because of brilliance, but because of my meticulousness. I had recorded every process, established encrypted audit trails years ago at the request of compliance during an internal investigation. And I had copies, off-site. I'd joined Synergy Dynamics when it was a startup in a shared workspace. I started when my son, Ethan, was in preschool. Now he was a working engineer. The company expanded, and I grew with it. I declined offers from rivals because I valued commitment. My wife, Sophia, often teased that the network nodes were my other children. She wasn't far off. I understood every server, every patch, every undocumented fix for problems management didn't know we had. The systems I designed had endured 4 mergers and numerous next big things that leadership adopted, then discarded. Marcus became my supervisor 3 years ago, a young business grad who referred to our team as tech assets. He talked about optimizing workflows and operational agility, jargon that typically meant cutting corners. Initially, I attempted to educate him on our system's deeply layered complexity. We need to innovate, he'd say during briefings, looking through me. 5 months ago, he hired a contractor named Nathan Reed. Expensive watch, confident demeanor, Ivy League credentials highlighted on his profile. They'd whisper in glass-walled rooms, going quiet when I passed. 2 months back, I observed my access rights being subtly altered. Not outright, but small tweaks to supervisory permissions. I could have objected. Instead, I observed and logged the changes. You've been quiet recently, Sophia mentioned one evening on our patio. Is work okay? I nodded, sipping my iced tea. Just the usual shifts. But this felt different. I was excluded from upgrade planning emails. Junior staff were handed projects that were traditionally mine. Then I discovered it. A company-wide announcement about a digital transformation that I hadn't been consulted on. It detailed a full overhaul of the tech division under new guidance. Nathan Reed. My role was omitted from the new structure. That same day, While performing a standard integrity check, a background task everyone else ignored, I detected anomalies in our procurement software. Recurring payments to a vendor I didn't recognize, Summit Advisory Services. A search showed it was incorporated only the previous year with a registered address that was a virtual mailbox. The approved transactions began modestly but swelled each quarter. I didn't react, just archived the data and kept watching. Sometimes the unnoticed person in the background observes the most, precisely because everyone assumes they see nothing. The morning after my termination, I sat in my home study, looking at my personal computer. No alarm, no rush hour, just stillness and the reality of what occurred. Sophia brought me coffee, setting it down wordlessly. After 21 years together, she understood when I needed quiet. "I'll be running errands," she said. "Need anything?" I shook my head. After she left, I unlocked a concealed compartment in my filing cabinet and retrieved a secure drive, one of several. Company policy explicitly forbade data removal, but years earlier, when compliance required an isolated audit trail for regulatory oversight, I'd insisted on encrypted off-site backups. They authorized it, then forgot. I connected the drive and started sifting through files. Internal memos, project logs, financial records no average employee should have access to. There it was, a complete ledger of payments to Summit Advisory Services, over $2.1 million in 24 months. The authorization trail led straight to our Chief Financial Officer, David Miller. I investigated further, correlating timelines and amounts until the scheme crystallized. The payments coincided exactly with hardware procurement cycles for company-wide infrastructure upgrades, but the sums were inflated, sometimes by 12%, sometimes by 25%. Enough to blend in, enough to accumulate. I leaned back, feeling something transform within me. Not fury, but something sharper, more calculated. For 19 years, I'd solved issues, maintained systems, safeguarded information. I'd been the dependable one, the constant who never made noise, and they disposed of me like obsolete equipment. My phone vibrated with a text from Ryan, a systems engineer I coached. "Heard about what happened. Total injustice. Reed is already taking over your projects." I placed the phone aside. The picture was clear now. Marcus and the CFO needed me gone before their misallocation was discovered. They likely thought the proof vanished with me, that I was just an aging engineer who didn't grasp corporate finance. I opened my email and started composing a message to the executive committee, then halted. Too straightforward, too easily dismissed as the vengeful rant of a terminated worker. I needed influence, a method to reveal the deception that was undeniable. I erased the draft and began strategizing. The next day was Thursday, the day the Executive Council convened. Quarterly results would be reviewed. Incentives would be ratified. Ideal timing. I shut the laptop and moved to the balcony, looking out at the community we'd been part of for years. For the first time since yesterday, I allowed a slight smile. Thursday morning, I sat in my car opposite Synergy's main entrance, watching staff enter. On the passenger seat was my laptop, connected to a dummy email account I'd created long ago for penetration testing, one that seemed to originate from an internal domain but wasn't listed in the Active Directory. At exactly 9:30 a.m., I made my first move. An email to Marcus with the subject, "Financial Discrepancies Requiring Immediate Attention," containing a concise overview of the Summit payments. I included sufficient data to be persuasive, but omitted the familial link. If Marcus was complicit, he'd react. If not, he'd probe. Either way, I'd gain insight. By 9:50, my phone rang. Marcus's number. I let it route to voicemail. His message was sharp. "Leo, contact me at once regarding your message. It's urgent." I didn't reply. Instead, I went to a library, opened my laptop, and waited. At 10:45, another email arrived, this one from Helena in HR.
Mr. Vance, we've received unauthorized correspondence from you that may breach your termination terms. Cease all contact with Synergy personnel and recall your confidentiality duties. Further contact may prompt legal measures. So that was their tactic. Intimidate, invalidate, separate. I'd signed no termination agreement. At noon, I visited my credit union and opened my safety deposit box. Inside was an older backup drive containing crucial data not on my regular drives. Among the files were original access control manifests I designed, documenting who had modified system permissions and when. According to these logs, David Miller had personally authorized elevated access to the procurement systems 24 months ago, exactly when the summit payments commenced. Back home, I found 3 more missed calls: Marcus, Helena, and now Nathan Reed. I hadn't anticipated his involvement so soon. Intriguing. I checked my personal email to find a message from Ryan marked urgent. Leo, they're saying you sent some wild email about financial misconduct. Reed called an all hands. Everyone's nervous. They're scrubbing your access from everything, even archives. It's chaos here. What's happening? Poor Ryan, stuck in the middle. I replied briefly, "Stay clear, Ryan. Just observe." At 3:30 p.m., my home line rang, a number I hadn't used professionally in years. I answered, but stayed silent. "Leo, it's David Miller." His tone was even, controlled. "We should discuss your concerns. I believe there's been a miscommunication." "Is that what we're calling it?" I asked. "Listen, restructuring phases are challenging. If you have queries about financial practices, there are formal avenues like the audit committee."
I cut in. The audit committee doesn't need to be troubled with minor operational details, correct? Silence. Why not meet tomorrow, one-on-one? We can resolve this. Sorry, I'm occupied tomorrow, I said. Besides, I think the audit committee might find Summit Advisory Services and your cousin quite engaging. The sharp gasp confirmed everything. You're pursuing a dangerous error, he said. We can rectify this. Ample severance, recommendations, whatever you require. Goodbye, David, I said, and ended the call. Within 15 minutes, Helena emailed again. Suddenly, my severance offer had tripled with an attached non-disclosure agreement covering all company-related knowledge. They were reacting now, but they still believed they were negotiating with someone seeking a payoff. They had no inkling of what was planned. Friday morning brought lucidity and verification. I'd spent the night parsing through historical data, connecting threads I'd previously ignored. The Summit scheme wasn't David's first venture. 4 years ago, shortly after his promotion to CFO, another pattern surfaced: consulting fees to an entity called Pinecrest Consultants. Different name, same method. Exaggerated invoices for services partially delivered or never completed. I traced Pinecrest's registration. This one led to Elizabeth Miller, David's sister. She was apparently president of a firm with no online presence, no staff, and a mail forwarding address. But the larger discovery emerged from email archives. Marcus hadn't merely been aware, he'd enabled these arrangements. In return, his division received funding boosts while others faced trimbacks. He'd been appointed precisely because the prior director had begun questioning tech spending. Even Nathan Reed was linked. His consultancy had been onboarded through an irregular process that skipped standard vendor screening. His real task wasn't modernization, it was removing the one person who might detect the financial irregularities. Me. The plan was sleek in its simplicity. Establish plausible vendors, approve inflated payments, and share the surplus. Since actual services were being delivered, just at inflated rates, auditors scanning for entirely fake charges would overlook it. Over 4 years, they diverted nearly $4.8 million. I compiled everything into a detailed dossier,
spreadsheets illustrating the payment escalations, business registrations tying the entities to David's relatives, email chains demonstrating Marcus's awareness and involvement. Then I did the unexpected. I contacted Evelyn Shaw, a board member I'd collaborated with years earlier on a compliance initiative. She was mostly retired but still attended key meetings. "Leo Vance," she said, picking up on the third ring. "It's been a while. I heard you departed Synergy." "Not voluntarily," I responded. "Evelyn, I require 20 minutes of your time. It's critical." A pause. "This related to why David and Marcus have been so jumpy? The last board meeting was uneasy." "Likely," I said. "I always assumed you knew where the skeletons were hidden." She chuckled. "Where shall we meet?" An hour later, we met at a botanical garden miles from the office. I handed her a sealed envelope containing a printed abstract and a secure drive. "That's the full record. Transactions, connections, evidence. I'm not seeking reinstatement or compensation. I just want the truth known." She studied me. "Why approach me?" "Because you actually review the fine print and audit reports. I've seen you in meetings. You ask the hard questions." She nodded slowly. "There's a special audit committee meeting Monday morning. Convenient timing, Leo." She pocketed the envelope. "If this verifies, there will be severe repercussions. I expect nothing less." Walking to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "A man named Nathan Reed stopped by the house asking for you, said it was critical. I told him you weren't available." They were becoming frantic. Excellent. That afternoon, I received employment offers from 2 rival firms, both for roles senior to my previous position, both with significant signing incentives. News of my sudden availability had circulated. I ignored them. For now, this wasn't about a new job. It was about closure. That night, using credentials that should have been deactivated but weren't, sloppy transition, Nathan, I accessed the company's communication server one final time and scheduled a message to be delivered to every audit committee member at 8 a.m. Monday. "Before you approve Q4 bonuses, read this." Attached was my full dossier. Monday morning was crisp and clear. I sat on my patio with tea, observing the quiet street. No alarm, no commute, just anticipation. At precisely 8 a.m., my scheduled email delivered its payload. By 8:19, my phone started ringing. Unfamiliar numbers, likely committee aides scrambling to reach me. I sent them all to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the special audit committee meeting would begin. Evelyn Shaw would be there with my documentation, watching responses. At 9:35, Ryan texted, "Security and police are here. Miller and Marcus are in closed-door meetings. Reed looks pale. What did you do?" I didn't respond. The mechanism was operating as intended. By 10:15, Synergy's general counsel called. Unlike the others, I answered. "Mr. Vance, this is Martin Foss from Legal. We need you to come in immediately to review the information you provided to the committee."
"I'm available remotely," I replied. "This necessitates an in-person meeting." "No, it doesn't," I interrupted calmly. "Everything I know is in that report. Everything I possess is duplicated in multiple secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, additional copies go to the SEC, the IRS, and major media outlets." Silence. "Mr. Vance," he finally said, his tone carefully measured, "the committee is treating this with the utmost seriousness. Several executives have already been placed on administrative leave pending a full inquiry. They request your cooperation." "I've cooperated fully by providing complete documentation. My role is complete." After he hung up, I drove to a cafe well outside Austin. No reason to be easily located that day. Over breakfast, news began appearing on regional business feeds. Synergy Dynamics executives under investigation for alleged financial misconduct. Names weren't yet public, but they would be. At 2 p.m., Evelyn Shaw called. "It's a purge," she said without preamble. "David folded when we presented your evidence, trying to deal, blaming Marcus for coercion. Marcus denies everything. Reed claims he was an uninformed contractor. No one believes him. We've suspended all 3. Forensic accountants start tomorrow.
Early figures suggest nearly $5.5 million diverted over 4 years, possibly more. I'd been close. The board wants to speak with you, Evelyn continued, about returning, not to your old role. They're establishing a new chief compliance officer position reporting directly to the board. I'd expected this, yet still felt a twinge of surprise. I'll consider it, I said. That evening, I explained everything to Sophia. She listened without interruption, then asked, "What do you want to do?" Good question. The retribution was complete. Those who'd ousted me were themselves ousted, likely facing legal action. Justice had been delivered, icy and exact. But returning to Synergy meant re-entering the organization that had cast me aside after 19 years of dedication. Could I? Did I? "I need time to decide," I said finally. Later that night, I opened my laptop one last time and posted a single message to my otherwise inactive professional profile. Never sabotage bridges. Simply allow them to crumble under the burden of their own corruption. Within minutes, former associates began reaching out. The story was spreading. The quiet infrastructure architect had toppled 3 executives without ever raising his voice. By Tuesday, everyone would understand exactly who they'd undervalued. Tuesday morning, I entered Synergy's headquarters wearing a blazer I hadn't worn in a decade. The receptionist did a double take, then hastily printed a temporary badge. "Welcome back, Mr. Vance," she said with newfound deference. The elevator ascent to the board level was silent. I'd never had cause to visit this floor before. Now, I was expected. In the conference room, 12 board members sat around a mahogany table. Evelyn Shaw gave a slight nod as I entered. The interim CEO, formerly the COO, appeared uneasy. "Mr. Vance," she began, "thank you for coming. The situation you've uncovered is profound." I remained quiet. "The full scope of the misconduct appears more extensive than initial estimates. The forensic unit has identified approximately $5.7 million in misdirected funds. Criminal charges are being filed." I waited. Evelyn cleared her throat. "Leo, the board has voted unanimously to create a new executive role, Chief Compliance Officer, full executive authority, direct reporting to the board. We wish to offer you the position." I placed my folder on the table. I said, "Non-negotiable." The CEO opened it, scanning quickly. Her eyebrows rose. "Full audit authority across all divisions? Autonomous budget veto power on all tech-related financial decisions?" I nodded once. "This is unconventional," she said. "So is embezzling $5.7 million, I replied. "That occurred because there was no oversight. Now there will be." The room fell silent. "You have until noon," I said, standing. "I have alternative opportunities." As I turned to leave, Evelyn asked, "Did you orchestrate this all along, Leo?" I paused at the door. I didn't orchestrate being terminated after 19 years. Everything after was merely me doing what I've always done, detecting system weaknesses and applying necessary safeguards. At 11:52, they called. They had accepted every condition. 7 months later, I sat in my new executive office, evaluating compliance frameworks for the next fiscal year. The views spanned the Austin horizon, a constant reminder of the transformation. David Miller had pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud in exchange for testimony. He'd receive a reduced sentence, still substantial. Marcus was contesting the charges, claiming ignorance despite the evidence. Nathan Reed had attempted to flee to Costa Rica, but was apprehended and extradited. Most of the funds had been recovered, enough that the company stabilized financially. My former team now reported to me, though I'd promoted Ryan to manage daily operations. The young man had promise, he just needed someone to believe in him. A knock at my door drew my attention. Sophia stood there, smiling. "For lunch?" she asked. I nodded, taking my jacket. As we walked through the tech department, conversations hushed briefly, not from anxiety, but from esteem. These people knew what had transpired, knew I could have dismantled the company. Instead, I'd preserved it. In the elevator, Sophia held my hand. "Happy?" she asked. I considered the question. The initial bitterness had subsided. What remained wasn't quite happiness, but fulfillment, resolution. "I'm content," I said. Outside, the midday sun warmed our faces as we walked to a nearby bistro. My phone buzzed with a message from Evelyn Shaw. "Board approved your compliance budget expansion. Unanimous." I smiled faintly. No debate, no queries, just confidence. Sophia noticed my expression. "What is it?" "Nothing," I said, returning the phone to my pocket. "Just thinking about bridges. Some crumble under their own decay. Others, when rebuilt correctly, become more resilient than ever." I'd reconstructed this one properly this time.